But today in this topic, we're gonna be talking about coming together, and this is the part two. Actually, I've done the part one video on coming together, and if you want to see it and also want to subscribe to my weekly videos, which I'm gonna be doing from now on, you can go to the Spiritual Logic, and that's you can look it up on YouTube. It's called the Spiritual Logic channel. So I have a couple videos there uploaded already that I've done, and I've done a part one about coming together, why it's important that we all come together and we all work together for our society development and advancement in everything that we do. So, and today I have three guests with me. They're my good friends. I have Harrison, I have Sean,
Yes, sir.
and I have Joey, my good friend Joey. So, um, they're gonna be giving us. This is a discussion about coming together. Why it's important that we all come together. Especially us, the youths. We need to start developing that kind of mindset. In an early age, we need to start knowing the importance of it in an early age.
So, hi everyone, I'm Sean. Thanks again, Silver, for letting me, join you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
But I think, long story short, not to just be general and have like a worldwide opinion, but at the same time, worldwide opinion would kind of bring us all together. If we can come to that consensus. Long story short, where I stand is that, I meet a lot of people, and everyone has their opinion, everyone has a difference of opinion, and that's what makes the world diverse. Diversity is beautiful, it's colorful.
Right.
I like seeing different cultures, I like hearing different opinions. Everyone's coded differently. I think that's very beautiful. That's what makes the world go round. But at the same time, it really creates a lot of extremism. People can be on one end of the side, and people can be on the other end of the side, and we tend to forget with that extremism that at the end of the day, if we all cut ourselves, we bleed the same color. Everyone bleeds red, everyone bleeds ketchup. Unless you bleed mayo, that's kind of weird. I would get that checked out. But we're all the same. We're all the same species. And a famous quote that I love to incorporate in my belief is that there's only two species: human cruel and human kind. And I believe we're all human. I know I'm part of humankind. Which one are you guys on? So that's pretty much the gist of where I stand.
Okay.
On spiritual stuff.
Okay. I'm gonna use this opportunity to tell my own story about pretty much to back up what he's saying. From where I'm from, it's a little different. I've told this story a couple times to many people, because it was just a huge cultural shock to me when I came down here to America, and that was about over a decade ago. I still remember it very well, even though I was just a boy. I still remember the difference. There was a huge difference. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian American, and I wasn't born out here, but I was born in Nigeria. And there are different parts of Nigeria that are well developed, and you can say they are rich, and there are different parts that are just poor and undeveloped. Whenever a country like that has issues with keeping the public, keeping the citizens, what do you call, what people will call rich, keeping them in a rich perspective, in a rich development, growth. Whenever a country cannot support that development, the people what they normally do is they normally take it in their hands to reach out to their neighbors, to reach out to their friends, to see how they can make life much easier for one another, much easier for everybody. And I witnessed it. It was a common thing down there. I grew up in there, and it was a common thing down there. So I never really took it as that it was a big deal until I came down here and I saw the difference, that people were not doing things together down here. People were not reaching out to one another. Everyone was independent. Everyone had good jobs. Everyone, maybe not good jobs, but everyone had the opportunity to get a job and work. So people were doing things separately. And because of that, I started to notice that there were a lot of diversity. There was racism. I was bullied a lot back in high school, growing up as a child. there was a lot of differences. We have an hour on the show. I want to get different perspectives from my friends. Like, what are your thoughts about why it's important for us to come together, why it's important for us to do things together, and, especially to break away from our fears, like how does this help us break away from our fears and help us develop together, get rid of our insecurities, and we all live as a highly evolved beings, and that, compassionate and able to, more importantly, able to be understanding with one another and tolerate one another, because we are all sharing a planet. It's like sharing a room. So, we're gonna be cramped in it, but we're gonna want things, and everybody else is gonna want the same thing we want. But the only way is to share it. It's the way I see it. It's the only way is to get together and figure out how to make this work. It's important that we come together and get rid of our fears and our insecurities. And
so, well, first off, thank you for having me on, Silver. You got a wonderful cast here for people.
Yes.
Just to talk about this. My perspective, it comes from the things I look at when it comes to the world and how we've developed. So we've developed from a place that we've changed in good areas and then we've changed in bad areas. So if you look at ancient literature in Greece or anywhere like that, you see a lot of methods in those books and those writings that describe things like hospitality. People talk about hospitality all the time. If you ever read Oedipus Rex, they always talk about that. Things like that in literature, from the beginning of time, they've talked about hospitality and how it's a good and moral thing. Since then, we've accepted, oh yeah, that's a good thing. In our modern age, though, it has come to a point, I feel, that now that we are so accelerated, we are like, oh yeah, we already have that embedded in our society. We don't gotta worry about that anymore. It's kind of something of who we are. But I don't think that it's completely at the point where we're ready to just throw it aside. Because we haven't fully accepted it in the way that we're so fast nowadays, especially here in America. I think we're like really, really intensely fast.
Yeah.
Like we do things without even
Fast-paced.
thinking about it. Yeah, very fast-paced. We gotta do so many. And there was a person, I forget who it was, but he said there was two different types of cultures, and we're in one now in our current modern American culture, and it's the modernized culture. Versus how it used to be, which was the tribalized culture. And it only changed as of maybe the 1400s, where people started to change drastically. And it really started to speed up once it got to the 1900s, where technology was starting to advance to make us faster. And the way this worked was tribal culture, according to how it's supposed to work, and according to this guy, I forget who he was, so don't fact check me, I don't know who he is. But he would say that tribal culture, the people who are close to you are the people that you should bring in, and you want to bring in more people naturally. So you want to, if you're a churchgoer, you're going to try to bring people into your congregation. If you have a family that's small, but you're open to having more people in the family, you're going to try to bring people closer to bring them into the family. And those were the values that people had then, and the people who lived in those generations were always looking to have that. But what they lacked in that was they also were so divided into tribal culture type things. If you were in one group, if you were in a church group, like if you were a Muslim, you would not have the same experience as someone who's Christian, because they're very different people and they would not really, say come to this side. They try to, but trying to yank someone over is never going to work. Nowadays, people have kind of turned away from tribal culture, and in a way, it's a good thing. I honestly think it's a good thing. I think that too much of it can really take away from what it means to be part of something. But what it also comes with it is people don't have a sense of belonging whatsoever. People who people don't go to church so much anymore. People don't care about like family, hospitality. Like it used to be like I think what's the famous? I'm trying to think of the famous Greek writing. Because I was talking about that earlier. It's the one with
Aristotle.
No, not Aristotle. It was the one with the Cyclops. What was it? You know what I'm referring to?
I don't know the name, but I know it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. But In that, it was by Homer. I know it was by Homer. But when he wrote that, they talked about hospitality so much because it was like, okay, you're on my island now. Come into my home. Come into my home. And those things were the things that they were working towards back then. Now we have such a, we have it so easy with everything that we don't need that. We don't need to have someone else tell us that we can have some type of joy in our life. We can just do it ourselves. And that kind of isolates us. I think the best way to do it is to just a healthy need. A little bit of both. You need to accept not that everybody in your group is what you need to belong to something, but rather everybody should be belonging together. We need to come together as communities because in a way that unity works, it only works when everybody's coming together. If there's someone who's opposing it, it'll only drive until the point that that person's out of the way or they secede or they leave or whatever, and then they don't care about unity anymore. I mean, let's think about the Civil War when it was over. They were talking about the entire war. They were talking about unity and everything like that. When the war was over, they didn't really care. They didn't care about bringing anybody in or nothing like that. And, you know, for good reason, like wars, you know, they're kind of bad. But we don't have to deal with that in our postmodern age. That's not really something that I see that really happens or occurs. But to kind of sum all of that up, if we were to just come together in terms of how we treat one another, how we address each other on the street, and how we feel towards one another, I feel that hospitality could be a big part of it. Hospitality. Letting someone into your home is so hard nowadays, and I don't know why.
That's true.
You know, like why, like people, if you were to let a homeless person into your streets these days, that'd be seen as, oh, what's wrong with that guy for doing that? But if you did that back then, they'd be like, oh, wow, that's a generous thing. I wouldn't be able to do that. That's so humble.
Yeah.
What has changed? What do you guys think about that? What could have changed it?
Well, what do you think, Harrison?
I have a lot of thoughts.
You got a lot to say.
You can answer it.
There's a lot to
You
say.
guys have all done a really good job. First of all 3 of you. I think part of it is fear.
Yes, it's all fear.
Part of it is fear.
Fear causes insecurities.
Definitely.
And insecurities is caused by separation, the mindset that we are like, especially competition. Yeah, it's like fear. I'm sorry that I realized that the separation mindset is what's causing the fear. You know, because this is our planet. So the rules, like, what should we be afraid of? Like, are we afraid of? If we're afraid of what we call the law enforcers, we raise awareness of why, how we can control the situation. If we're afraid of whatever it is that we're afraid of, going to war or whatever it is, we raise awareness for how it is that we. But ultimately, the idea is that everything in this planet is our home, and we need to take care of it as we would take care of ourselves. You know, that's the way I see that, and by coming together is the only way, like by treating this planet as like I'm sharing a room with a couple other roommates, so I need to share this, I need to come together, I need to work with these people, you know, with what they have, with their talents, with their goals, which is kind of why I wanted to invite people like you guys on my shows, because you guys, you know, have the insight and things like this, and I want to work together with like-minded people like myself. You know, and in doing so, I also develop and grow in my own spirit, in my own journey, in my own way of life, in my own personality, my lifestyle, everything.
You are the company that you keep around.
Yes, exactly. So it's necessary that we come together to achieve our goals, to do everything. It's not about the ego. It's not about getting more cars and being more. Why don't you guys think about this? The most famous people, have you guys realized that the most famous people in the world are usually the most humblest? Like, think about the celebrities. The successful ones.
Like the ones that are long term.
Exactly. Yeah. That did it with their own hands, hard work. That get there with their hard work, like Will Smith or The Rock. Or you don't see these people bragging about their wealth. If anything, you see them giving out PlayStations to the other, or stuff like that. You know, it's like the more you become, you develop this higher state of consciousness, the more you realize that material things are not the importance. That the importance is the real emotions, the connections, the real bond and connections that you build with people. Because that's what keeps the riches coming. It keeps it coming. Like there would never be lack. There would never be like enslavement in any kind. It would just, everybody would be rich. That's the point. Anyway,
No, man, nah. I agree with everything you just said right there. I think
because you said fear, so
I think we're in a really interesting time. I think that, like you guys have mentioned, we're all very individual, but at the same time, we still operate as a society. So we're at a really unique point. We kind of live on our phones,
right?
And that's kind of our society now. I think that most people would agree. With exceptions, like we all met here, like when you come somewhere together. But for the most part, most of the people that we meet, most of the people we interact with, usually comes from online, usually comes from texting a friend, texting a relative. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think that we're transitioning to that. And I think that the more that we kind of become okay with communicating via the phone, communicating with people, instead of it having to always be face to face, like if someone's far away, boom, boom, shoot a text. I think that's really brought us together in some senses. But I also think that social media has really put a light on a lot of the problems we have in this country. And a lot of people are like, social media is so bad, it's terrible, we need to get off social media, get the kids off social media. Like, I'm a big Gary Vee fan, and he always says this: social media is empty. There's nothing on social media if we don't put it there. So I think that a lot of the hate that we've been seeing, it's not really new. It's not like, oh, social media, it brought out all these terrible things. It's putting a light on it. And now it's kind of, it's out there now. Like, we see it, you can't really hide from it. There's a lot of issues going on in this world, whether it be, racial, global warming, just hate in general, negativity. I mean, the amount of negative comments that I see on a daily basis just regarding, like, LeBron, like the Lakers, like, they're terrible, I hate them, this is the worst thing ever. Like, it really comes back to just the problems that we have going on in our lives, and that's where the individual and society comes in. Like you mentioned, we have went pretty individual. You can kind of operate and function on your own nowadays. I mean, the internet, the opportunities are endless. It's not that hard to get a job. Like, you can kind of function on your own, but at the end of the day, like, in our simplest being, we're altruistic. Like, we are meant to be with other people. We're meant to interact with society.
Yeah, we're social beings.
We are social beings.
Creatures.
It's how we're naturally built. So as we transition to this where we're mostly on the phone and we can do things individually, still taking the time to kind of be present and be in the moment with people when they have them. And I think that kind of one thing with that is the Kobe Bryant thing that happened a few weeks ago. Him and his daughter and the 9 people that woke up on that, or went on that plane, they woke up that morning completely healthy people expecting to go to a basketball tournament. Life is short. I believe in God, I believe in heaven. I think that our souls are everlasting, but the time that we're on this planet is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities, especially now. Like this podcast right here. 20 years ago, this would have been impossible. We would have had to buy a radio show.
That's right.
We would have had to get a slot, spend thousands of dollars. It would have took us years to get to.
That's
we would have had to work our way up as interns.
That's true.
We can sit here, we can distribute this. And
this is just free for us.
It's free distribution, and hypothetically, 100 people could see it.
Right.
100 people could sit and listen to it. So we have this unique opportunity, and we can come together. It's not necessarily out of the picture, and we can make a lot of the things that we have going wrong right now right. It's a matter a lot of self-reflection. I think a lot of people kind of need to sit in their room for a week and just think, and just kind of take a step back, meditate, read the Bible, read whatever
mindfulness.
Read whatever it is that catch you there spiritually. Watch YouTube videos, read books. It doesn't really matter what you do.
Education should never end.
Education should never end. And taking a little bit of time to reflect on yourself and educate yourself about yourself, there's a lot of things that if you just take a step back and really look at, you'll learn about yourself. I played football and baseball my whole life coming up, and I played baseball until I went to high school, and then I immediately switched into football. So when you're kind of like in like the team like that, you don't really have time off. You're practicing, you're playing, you're lifting, meeting, school. you got a lot going on. So when I stopped playing football, I kind of had the first opportunity to take a step back and take myself out of sports and kind of really figure out what was going on in my brain. Like, okay, what do I do now that I'm done sports? I put my 18 years into this. Like, what's my next move? What do I want to do? What do I like? And I just think I took more time than most. I took a few months where I really just kind of like was in my head, like, all right, what am I, you know what I mean? Like, what am I looking for here? I think that time was extremely beneficial. And I think it's beneficial for kind of everybody who does it, just to take some time to be with yourself, to be with your God, whoever that may be, to be with whatever.
To be with the spirit, man.
Yeah, to be with the spirit, to be with the content. You know, we definitely have a spirit inside of us.
Yeah.
We're more than just our bodies and how fast we can run. And
This is all. This
Yeah,
whole
this is-
world. This is all just a phase. This is all.
Yeah.
You know,
this,
temporary.
yes, this is one part of a long, long journey.
Yeah.
And I think that doing good and doing kindness, and another thing is not having expectations for the kindness.
Right.
Right.
Doing kindness and having expectations for return.
It makes it conditional.
It makes it
Yeah.
conditioned. You're never gonna get the same satisfaction.
Right.
You kind of do just have to do kindness out of the good of your heart to try to be a good person,
Right.
and just kind of keep going about your day. And even when you take some losses, like we all take losses, and whether it be small losses, internal losses, or huge losses, you got to keep moving. You got to put a foot in front of the other, and you just got to keep the plan intact, keep God's plan intact, and just keep moving. You know, like it's super important. We're all gonna go through trials and tribulations, but you know the difference between successful people and really happy people. And I think that's another thing is
That's
the
true.
word successful kind of needs a definition change.
Yeah.
It kind of needs a definition change.
Yes.
You have everything
Yes.
you need.
And be miserable.
Yeah.
And is that successful?
Yeah. No.
'Cause at that point, you're thinking of all material things. It goes
Right.
back to what Silver started with,
Right.
the being whole, like, hey, I was good financially and I was broke financially.
Yeah.
You know, when you just chase, you know, the paper, when you're only chasing the paper, and there are people who are high up, you know, on a bigger plateau than us, on
Right.
a bigger pedestal, and you know, I don't take Robin Williams, had
was just
everything.
about to say that.
Yep. You know,
Anthony Bourdain.
Exactly. Had everything. His own, their own show. They have money they haven't made. And what were they? Miserable. They were sad, unfortunately.
Yes.
I've met some like, you know, homeless people. You know, I've met some medium people. I've met all kinds of people, and like it's crazy how different the energies will be depending on who you meet. Which is why you gotta always like just, you know, take into it, look into it from your perspective and everything, and almost kind of think, well, how can I achieve my medium, my happiness?
Yeah.
You know, like it can't just be paper chasing. It can't just be, you know, I got friends who smoke. It can't just be smoking. It can't just be drinking. Like, what is there more to? Like, what was I put here for? You got to find your purpose, and that's where the self-reflection comes into play.
I think it's
so,
huge.
I believe in God's plan too.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not gonna lie, man. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's my favorite series.
Well,
It used to be on Nickelodeon. But Prince Zuko. Long story short, Prince Zuko had to lose himself to find himself.
Right.
There has to be a balance, and that's what I say on my show as well. Is you just got to find that balance between yourself. You can't spread yourself too far, not too thin.
Facts.
You know, keep your circle, you know, tight. Don't just spread yourself to everybody, because you can be friendly to everybody. You know, I got a
I
lot
think
of
that's
people I'm
important.
friends with,
Yeah.
But if you give too much of yourself, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and you always got to self-reflect and stuff. And always like, I'm a Christian. I go back to God. You know, I have trials every day, and I'm like, God, you know, I can't do this. I'm gonna give it to you.
Yep.
You know?
It's so important.
It's-
handing it off to him.
Yeah,
it is. It's so
really is.
important.
Because at the end of the day, like Silver said, we're spirits.
Yeah.
We're energy.
Right.
This whole flesh thing it's all temporary.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
There's only one true wealth, honestly, and it can only be found inside you.
Facts.
That's
Facts.
my opinion. Like, there is nothing that you can get externally that you can't do without getting it in yourself.
Of course.
Because there's like, I feel like a lot of people these days, they can't find a way to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think it's an epidemic almost.
It
because
is.
It's
There's
like,
a lot of people who are depressed.
yeah, like mental illness is through the roof. And
That's one thing social media has brought to the light, which is good, because it wasn't taken seriously before.
No, it wasn't, and now it is.
Yeah.
It finally is. And
really
you know, it can be a great outlet to find like the motivation you need to keep moving forward, because
That's what this is for, man.
Yeah.
That's what this is for. It's the motivation to inspire people to be happy,
Right.
to give them the permission. The problem is that people don't feel like they earned the permission to be
And
happy.
that comes from judgment.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Judgment from
that
others.
comes. That's why I
Judgment,
said
expectations.
coming together is the only way to break free of our insecurities, because these are insecurities that we grew up with. like, when we were like spanked as kids, when we were, rejected, when our parents say no to us, when we grew up with this mindset that we're not good enough, we're not, and we don't give ourselves the permission to be happy. That's where all this depression comes from. But when we start to come together, you start to realize that the seed itself, the idea of wanting to come together, brings this warm feeling to it that gives you the permission to express your higher, better self, and not your lower self of like doubt and fear and insecurities and judgment and negativity, but your higher, better self that feels like nobody is judging you. You can be who you are, you can express yourself, you can, whatever you want to be, you can be as great. And we've started to realize that even our career jobs, society, economy begins to expand itself. It begins to expand because people will begin to invent more, jobs. You were trying to say something, Harrison.
I think there's 3 parts to the judgment thing. I think you can't judge yourself.
Right.
I think that we're all very hard on ourselves. We're our own biggest critic. And to an extent, that's good. I think in a professional sense, you should definitely be hard on yourself, push yourself hard. But you can't judge yourself. When you fail or when you take a day off or when you lay around watching Netflix, you have to just put another foot in front of the other. The next part of judgment, and might be one of the most important ones, is you really can't care what anyone thinks. You can't really put,
You have to follow your heart, not your mind. The mind is everybody else around you too, and they will tell you what your mind is. The old distractions and all of that.
People will try to put a lot of different things.
But
in your
the heart
mind.
is simple. The heart is just a simple. It just tells you what is simple. It doesn't. But the mind likes to complicate things.
If you think about it, that's what influences the mind, because your heart is those are your truest intentions.
Yeah.
Even though
Yes.
there's a cliche saying where there's a reason your heart's located on the left, it's because it's not always right. But regardless of wherever it's located, those are your truest
You know what
intentions.
you want in here.
You know what you want.
Yeah.
And the whole like internal conflict with that, with everybody. I mean, myself included. Everyone goes through it. Is, well, I want this. Is it right? And that's where they internalize everything and overthink. Well, can I do this? Should I do this?
That's what I'm saying about the
People are
permission
so
to get it.
afraid. People are so afraid to be themselves.
Absolutely.
Because there's something
Definitely.
inside them that says this is right, but then social norms say no. Social norms say no. Now, there's like, if you were to live, like, there's 2 different types of things you can fear that I really think that it comes down to, because fear in itself is not a good thing. But if you have to fear something, you either choose to fear death, or you either choose to fear not to start living.
Facts.
If you don't start living now, if you're not content with what you have right now and satisfied with that, you're not going to have it anytime later. You need to be satisfied with it now, so that in the future you can have even more glory, even more gold, even more God within you.
That's true.
And that's honestly what it comes down to.
That's right.
It's all about.
That's right.
It's all about praising Him.
Absolutely. You can never, you got to be content with what. So what I always say, what I was raised with, and I was in a Presbyterian Christian family household, and everything happens for a reason. It's either a blessing or a lesson, but everything helps you move forward. With whatever scenario you go through, if it's a good thing, it's a blessing. If it's a bad thing, you say, all right, God, like, let me know what I need to learn from this, so I can be the person you made me to be.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about trying to be the best version of yourself. So then, if you can't be a beacon of light, how are you going to shed the light to others? It's all about bringing yourself to be a beacon of light.
I'm gonna clarify more on what you said about the heart. Like the heart always think left.
Yeah.
Consider left first before it does. I'm gonna explain that. I have a deep understanding for that. I believe that the heart itself is this out the box creative. Is the right brain of intuition. Is the creative mind, and the heart its creativity has no bound. It's infinite. So it would think of, and it would want to express itself in any freaking way, in any way possible, and because it wants to do that, because it wants to be free to do that, to express itself in any way possible, then it looks left to consider its environment, to see if its environment is suited enough for it to express itself, and its environment is now it's now where all this problem is coming from, which is the separation, the idea of separation, which is why I keep going back to the topic on coming together, because that's more important, because it's what is the foundation of the whole problem. And when the heart is looking left, it's considering the environment. If the environment is suiting enough for it to come out and play, to come out and express itself. And when the environment is also brainwashed in this negative perspective that I need to be better than you, or I need to not care about you, I need to get more stuff to prove to you that I'm better than you.
There's
or
enough food at the
that-
table for everyone.
That's all it is.
There's enough food for
It's just,
everyone.
it comes to the realization that there is enough on this planet. When we realize that there is enough on this planet, poverty, everything goes away.
Facts.
Even people in Africa will not be suffering anymore. It's like all it needs is awareness, just enough awareness to be raised. Any problem should just, the only way to solve a problem is to raise awareness
And that's why I'm
about
excited
it.
about social media.
Right.
It puts a light on things.
Right,
Good
right.
or
It
bad.
helps it,
And,
yeah.
when the bad things happen, we see it. When the good things happen,
Right,
we see it.
right, right.
I'm excited about its potential.
Right.
Right.
And like you were saying before, like judgment isn't really a good thing, but during those bad cases of social media, that's usually what we're doing. We're judging
So much. Even the good cases, even the small things, like the Oscars, or like simple things that honestly don't matter. Like I get it, they're cool, but they really don't matter, and people just really wrap themselves in it and kind of escape their life by being negative in that light. And I think one of the biggest things is just empathy and not judging other people, even when it's easy to, because sometimes people do make mistakes. Like I'm a big football fan, and Antonio Brown is one of the best wide receivers that the sport has seen. And this past 6 months, he's went on a complete downward spiral, and it's been really easy to just lay into him, Antonio Brown this, Antonio Brown that. I think that just more empathy and really self-reflecting, why am I rooting for someone to fail that I don't know, that has kids, that has a family?
Yeah, because people can when they get on social media, it's a mask.
It is.
It's a mask. You can put it on, and it's almost like a helmet mask.
And you can make an account as anyone.
99% of the time, it's all a facade. It's not what people really are doing.
Yeah.
Just like going back to what you were saying about it having its pros and cons, and also going back to what you were saying.
Right.
Social media, ever since 2016 or 17, I believe, it's brought light upon acceptance. There have been a lot of changes going on, and life is a constant progression. So, for people to not want to conform, to social norms or whatever, I get it. But you have to have at least understanding of the social norms going on today, because there are people who just want to completely deny that. I think understanding is the basis of just progression. As long as you understand it, you can keep going and moving forward. I mean, there's a whole bunch of laws now that are in favor of some situations, and stuff like that. Oh yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, like Lao Tzu, if you guys know who he is, he's a
Philosopher?
from
Yeah,
China.
He's a philosopher, I think he's in China. He wound up saying that progress is like a river, and if you resist a river, you can hold on to a branch all you want. It's eventually going to take you. All your strength won't be able to
You have to
hold
keep
that.
moving.
Good. That's what they say. Go with the flow.
And I was telling Silver this the other day, some part of that is there's different branches to rivers, they branch out.
Right.
That's your choice. You can choose which way to go, and you can go down it really fast, and you can do really good. But if you try to resist the river at all costs, it's not gonna go anywhere. Yeah.
You're gonna have a whole internal struggle at that point.
Exactly.
And that's a whole internal conflict of whether you want to come to terms with something that's naturally gonna happen or not.
Yeah.
And it's so easy, just like you were saying, it's so easy and hard to judge at the same time because it's in our coding to judge.
Easy to judge.
That's how we
It's
make
so easy
every
to
decision.
judge.
I judge the colors, and I figured out my favorite color is red. I judge my restaurants. I figured out I like Chick-fil-A the best. That's why it's an occupation to judge. Whatever moral compass you follow, when you look from a morally higher standard, then you can realize, like I said, we're all just one species. We're all human. If you don't,
We're all human
the only
race.
Time, exactly. The only time you should be looking down on someone is when you help them up. That's the only time.
Yeah. That's very true.
And it's gonna be a big shift.
I like that.
And even for myself personally, it's not easy. It's not easy to not judge people. It kind of comes naturally.
That's
and,
exactly.
Not to
It's not
sound
coding.
rude, but especially with females, I probably won't talk to a girl if I don't find her attractive. So it's just something I'm trying to improve on, even myself personally.
This is the thing, we're very imperfect creatures.
Oh yeah.
The human race. We're very imperfect. We have this thing inside of us that's kind of animalistic, where we see things in a way that's very instinctual. We judge at first sight because that's our first sense.
Yep.
It's our first sense. Our second one might be touch. Our next one might be hear. It's in order of that. But when you take all the five senses out of the picture and you just try to connect with somebody,
That would be the sixth sense.
that's the sixth sense. Yeah,
Yep.
you know it.
Yep.
Yeah, like if you have that and you're able to try to look beyond all the others and go right to the sixth sense, you're gonna be able to not judge so much and all that. And you know it's tough.
Oh yeah.
It's tough to tap
It's
into.
hard.
You can't just
It's
front
hard.
like be like it's easy. Anyone that says it's easy is lying.
Exactly,
Very
they're
difficult.
completely lying.
Very difficult.
Actually, I believe that it's natural for us. It's actually something is wrong with you if you do not judge.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so because
It's in there.
the thing is, I believe that the reason why we have to judge is because we want to know how we can make it better, not how we can make it bad.
That is true.
Right.
But society has been in a downward spiral when we're making things worse with the way we're thinking about it. And not actually the way the situation is. The situation is not the way
I
it
think that's
is.
why meditation is so important.
It's very
Because
important.
you can
Mindfulness.
Really learn
Mindfulness.
That your thoughts are just thoughts.
You're just
and you
yeah.
control them.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
you don't like a thought, you can move on from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you know, yeah, that's actually something I started doing this week. I started meditating. Every
Good,
day
man.
I'm doing it. And silver.
Right.
So we remember Friday. I won't say what it was, but I was angry about something. Remember? Before I went on my show, somebody was saying something.
Oh, yeah.
I was upset, right? And I dealt with it. Now, ever since then, I had to follow up on that same person and talk to that same person who really upset me, and I immediately went right to anger, because there's like I've
not
got
to.
yeah, it was like a boiling point. Like I felt like I was sitting there taking it for a while. Like now I'm just gonna be angry. Now this is the best way to deal with this.
Right.
And I thought it was.
It usually isn't.
It
And it
really
always
isn't.
feels like it is.
Exactly.
It always feels like it's the right way.
It does, and you know why? Because it's such a strong feeling.
It is.
It's a
It's
strong
strong.
feeling. But what is stronger is just loving.
Of course.
Loving people, loving yourself. And what I did was when I went in there Monday and I started talking to this person, I started thinking, loving myself, loving the person. I wasn't necessarily, I was a nicer person and more, I was able to think a little more clearly and reason for what I was saying, and it made the other person understand a little better. You know, because it's something that, if it's a stronger emotion, but it's harder to tap into.
Yeah.
You know, some things, the things that are harder to do are often harder to contain. You know? So, but if you get to that point where you're naturally able to attain it, I feel like that's when you can start.
Do you know?
Absolutely.
Do you know why it is important? Actually, I was thinking about what you're saying, and I started to think that the reason why it is important that you use love, the emotions of love, to communicate. It's not. You're not trying. I'm not saying that you should try and be like Jesus Christ. Of course, we should all, be, inspired by his teachings and the ancient.
But we're imperfect.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that you using the emotions of love to communicate, it's not only for the other person, but it's for yourself.
Absolutely.
Because the reason when you do that, you're less resistant. You're not resisting. You're not, what you want to say, the way you want to communicate, the way you want to express yourself, it comes out naturally. It just comes out. But when you're angry, when you're upset, when you have all these different emotions, you're getting in the way of what you want to express out to the other person.
about that.
And it causes confusion. It's like, why are you angry? Just calm down and say what you want to say. Because you're the one getting in the way. You're the one, showing love is not you're trying to be holy as thou, or you're trying to be the Holy Spirit.
Right.
No, it's more so it's for yourself. It's because you need that kind of emotions to be able to express and receive, so you can be rich in what you want. Yeah, you have to love yourself.
They say you can, I used to not believe it, and it is true to its essence. If you can't love yourself, you can't love another. And I learned that the hard way. I would try to work my way around it because I thought I was like, I would be like, no, I didn't know what loving myself. I forgot what that felt like when I loved you, like when it was just to a friend or a romantic person or whatever like that. But the truth is, you have to have compassion for yourself.
Right.
It's just you have to. Because if you can't love yourself, you can't love another. And going on what you're saying, it's very important because you'll meet people who don't understand that yet. And that's when the real test is that if they get angry first, you have to be even calmer, even kinder, even nicer.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're not gonna put out a fire with
Because
another fire.
they're resisting what they want to say. Like they're like that. It's confusion. all of that is confusion. It's causing this flow. You're not flowing right with, you're how the universe said, or in the Bible they said action you should be received.
Yeah.
It's basically simple. What we're doing is what we do every day. By the way we communicate, our breathing, our the body, we are literally asking for all of these things, and it's happening in within us. We're subconsciously doing it.
Yeah.
So, but when you're angry, you're causing all these blockages in the body, where it's like what you're asking for, you're not receiving what you're asking for. You see how that doesn't make any sense? It doesn't compute. So it's like, so why keep the anger? Why is the reason why the masters that come in the past, the main things that they thought about was forgiveness. Letting go. Just let go of all the nonsense. Let go of all the negativity. You don't need them, because you want to create what you want to express yourself in the best ways possible. And how do you do that? It's through the emotions of love.
And I think one of the main struggles for that is, I think one thing it really comes down to is habits. Your habits really make you who you are.
But die hard.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's a whole time we can talk about that for a long time, But one thing that really goes along with that is the shame of what you did with your old habits. And if you're like, I gotta change the way I am to help bring people together towards me. Well, a big thing to that is, if you were to just think that yesterday, the person you were yesterday, you can think this every day, the person you were yesterday, the good, the bad, the everything, they died. And now you live the rest of your life, the good part.
That's true.
You live the good part from now on. You do that every day, you're going to every day develop a new virtue, develop a new ethic, develop more to yourself,
Nobility.
to what you can share with the world. Nobility. Yes,
You become noble. Like your whole intentions becomes noble. Like people will see it it will reflect who you are. It will reflect your personality. People will see it as you think, so you become. So
And you learn more. That's the important. I think education in this country is really, really bad.
Oh yeah.
right.
Like,
It is, man.
the school systems, in my opinion, that it's just fraudulent. I think that it really just goes around the real meaning of education, which is, and Aristotle wound up saying this, is that education should be about what you want to learn. That's the only way to get someone to learn, is to get something that they want to learn, and then they will find the ways in the world that they need to learn certain other things to apply to that.
You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink.
Exactly, yeah. I just heard that yesterday from, I don't know who it was who was saying
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's crazy. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I hear you. I got you, bro.
But yeah, that's really what I think it comes down to.
Of course. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be absorbing information till our last breath.
Most
That's really how it is. And like I said, going back, like, you can't fight fire with another fire. Like, the school system didn't teach me how to quell a situation, but they taught me, and what I can recite to you is that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of a cell. Like, nothing wrong with that. It's information, but we're not really learning how to quell situations, and not just with other people, but with ourselves.
Internally.
We're not learning how to, like, that's what social media is bringing. Like, they're bringing the whole mental health, emotional health. The awareness level of it is through the roof,
People
which is
don't know
good.
they have anxiety for the first 20 years of their life.
Yeah, and
They're like, wait a minute, I have
exactly.
anxiety? I have a friend, he wound up having some issues with his heart, and it was like, I have anxiety? What are you talking about? I thought I was having like an actual heart attack. No, you're just having a panic attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing is, I don't know why it is, but like when you have a sudden burst of anger or sadness or something like that, it's not something that's unnatural. It's something that is inside of you, but it's a point of where to use it that really will be the most important thing, because if you use it in public, and it's like something that's really aggressive and really impeding on everybody else's well-being, it's not good.
Right.
But if you learn to do it within yourself, whether it's self-meditation, whether it's just something as simple as just kind of like yelling, or just like punching a punching bag, that gets it out, that gets the energy out, and it's in a safe and healthy way.
Of course. I think to wrap up just that thought, I think it's important to acknowledge your emotions. A lot of people, I know guys especially, I'm guilty of it too. We suppress emotions, and we just keep saying, like, I don't know a lot of females that do it. It's mostly in men, but there are some females. Everyone does. It's a big world out there. But I know most guys will just bury it until they one day have a day where they just burst out by the littlest thing, whether they get angry or whether they cry. And that's why you have to acknowledge what you're feeling. I think it's important. Like, you know you're angry, you know you don't want to be angry, go take care of it somehow. Like, cool off, go for a drive, go for a swim, go work out, listen to some music, vent, talk it out.
and acknowledge it. Because I know my friend told me one time ago that she told me if you don't acknowledge your feelings, they'll fight for your acknowledgement. And you don't ever want your feelings to master you. You have to master your feelings, which is something my mom told me. I'm still struggling, but I'm a lot better than what I used to be. So, yeah.
That's all it is. About self-help.
Yeah, just for the sake of time, guys, because we have like 2-3 minutes left. I'm gonna wrap up the main idea, what we really need, you guys that are listening out there and you guys that are gonna be watching these videos. What we need you to know is that you need to plant the seed of togetherness in your heart. When you plant that seed of togetherness in your heart, the ego falls away. The ego of that I need to compete with someone, I need to be better than somebody, and the illusion falls away, and you begin to realize your soul mission. You begin to realize your soul calling, what you really want to do on this planet. And like these things are the things that satisfies the heart. It doesn't satisfy the ego. It satisfies the heart, who you are. Do you guys have anything you want to say to the people?
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
every day is a journey and every day is a trial.
Yeah.
And don't worry about if you fall, because if you fall 9 times, you get up 10.
Be compassionate.
Be compassionate. Yeah.
And thank you all for listening, guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for listening. And this is 91.5 WDBK. Thank you all for listening and have a good day. Till next week. Bye bye.